Again, welcome everyone. We'll be ready to go with Donald Quintana and Tin Man Lee in just a moment.
Seeing some familiar faces out there. It's nice to see.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. That screen just like get really big and really small.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm still working this out. My apologies.
We're just making sure everyone's awake.
Yeah.
Are you using the PowerPoint to do that, or are you just zooming in the photo?
I'm using Adobe Bridge, the slideshow feature in Adobe Bridge.
I see.
So, yeah.
That's neat because I couldn't find the zoom button in my in my PowerPoint. That would be good. Yeah.
It's not the best slideshow app, but you know, it works for like if you want to show a bunch of images that are in a folder, it just makes it really easy to be able to present them.
Really? God, I gotta ask you next time. Yeah, so I see from the chat that Beth is not getting the sound. So I wonder why. Let me see. Usually, yeah, when you see the microphone, I think there is a place where you select the speaker, right? So.
Oh, join with audio.
Oh, got it. Oh, she got it. So that's good.
All right. We give ourselves a few more minutes. We've got 56 people in. Give ourselves to about 5 after. I know Bob wants to start right at 5 o'clock.
The teacher Bob, you mean?
The teacher Bob, yeah, there we go.
So have you guys had a lot of presentations so far?
About 4 or 5 with Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I see.
And we average about, 20 to 30 people participating in a Zoom meeting. So we're really kind of amazed that we've got, I think last count, we had 115 people for this one.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. It's just getting me more nervous. So
124 people signed up. So I really hope that that addition to the amount of space I put on there kicks in, because if it doesn't, some people are going to have to.
Yeah. All right. Yes, I'm gonna give it my best, even though, yeah, I am just still recovering from the fever. So, sometimes I may say some random stuff. So just stop me.
Well, as long as you don't say things like, we've got to get Hillary's emails out there, then we'll be fine.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. I see some familiar names too. So that's great.
How are we doing,
Tin
Bob?
Man. It's Vicky. Hi, Tin Man. I'm a familiar name.
Oh, hey, Vicky. How are you doing?
Great,
Good to see you.
Yeah, well, I didn't video myself. Hang on a second. I'll start the video because I'm wandering around.
Oh, how nice to see you the first time.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah, very good to see you.
Yeah, I appreciate you putting all of these fabulous connections together, because I don't get out to California that often. So.
Oh, well, next time you come, you know where to go. That's Bob and Dawn and all these. They have all
the
these.
gang. My new pals.
Yeah.
I'm on my way to Yellowstone.
Oh my God, really? When are you going? Because I'm thinking about secretly driving away in the next few weeks too.
Yeah, I just bought an off-road 4-wheel drive vehicle. So I'm driving from Florida. So
oh, that's exciting. Yeah, we must catch up afterwards then.
Yeah, we will. Yes,
yeah.
My answer to COVID, which canceled every single trip I had this year.
I think this is really the best way to be safe while travel, which is to get a van, like those that that's really good.
Yeah, Yep. All right. I'll mute myself and I'll disappear into the background.
Mhm. All right.
When you said I see familiar names, I couldn't hold back.
Okay, that's great.
I know
That's
you'll be great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome.
Oh, I did it again. Gotta stop touching my mouse.
No, this looks cool. There's this effect, like it's like, ooh, it's coming out. Love it.
Hey, Tin Man, Ashila here.
Oh wow, there's a lot of familiar
Donald.
names. Hello.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Yeah, hey, Ashula, you should connect with Vicky because you both have the van, so maybe you guys can
Yeah.
share notes.
Mine will be ready in the next month, hopefully.
That's fantastic.
I'll
See,
let you know.
this is the good thing about these meetings, right? You never expect what you meet up, and then both of you love photography. Both of you are really good, and then you have the van, right? And Rick too.
Exactly.
I saw Rick is here too. He has the van too. Maybe you guys should form this like subgroup.
Caravan. We should
Yeah.
all go. We should all travel each other. Ashla, I'll friend you now on Facebook.
All right, sounds good. Hey,
Oh.
I'm moving to Oregon.
Oh my God, really? Wow.
Yeah, Oregon in the next month.
Oh, how
hopefully.
exciting. Oh, that is beautiful there.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm looking forward to it.
Wow. That's great. Great to
Hey,
hear that.
everyone. Oh, I'm sorry, Tin Man. Go
Oh,
ahead.
no, I'm good. Yes.
Well, due to the number of individuals here, let's see where we're up to now. We're up to maybe 90. We're going to mute everyone just because there's just so much questions. I'm sure you want to ask Tin Man, but as Donald will explain, we just have some time. And so with that, I'll give it to Donald.
So hi, everybody. Welcome to our monthly meeting. We have my good friend, international award-winning wildlife photographer, Tin Man Lee, somebody who I consider a mentor in wildlife photography, with us tonight. And we're going to kind of have an informal conversation with him, and I'm going to ask him some questions that I've been dying to ask him. And then at about 6 o'clock, we're going to, hopefully, if you could put your questions in the chat, then Bob is going to copy and paste them into a Word document. And then at 6 o'clock, what we'll do is we'll read off your questions that you have for him. That way we don't have everybody trying to talk at once. We kind of have some order, just to kind of make it as smooth as possible. Because once we all start talking, it can be crazy. If you guys, I think everybody's been in a Zoom meeting. So I want to welcome Tin Man Lee and kind of give you a little background on him. Tin and I met, I believe it was in 2011. He reached out to me about a bobcat photo because he was crazy about bobcats in taking photos of them in Montana de Oro. So we kind of connected, and a couple years later, he won the Nature's Best grand prize for, let me see if I can get this to go, work the way I need it to work here. He won the grand.
Whoa, sorry, Donald.
Am I muted still?
No, you're good, but Tin Man is temporarily.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
There we go.
Good. We're
There
back.
we go.
So he won the grand prize for Nature's Best with this amazing image of a bear. And not only did he win grand prize, but let's see if I get this work here. This is a picture of the bear that he captured and won grand prize with. But his image was also featured on the outside of the Smithsonian Institute for the exhibit. So without further ado, I want to introduce Tin Man Lee. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. And how's that?
Awesome. Thank you, Donald.
Great.
Yeah, and thank you, Bob, for
Sure.
giving me this opportunity to speak to you guys. Very excited. Yeah.
Okay, so first thing I want to ask you, Tin Man, is what was it like to win Nature's Best grand prize? I mean, you know, that's got to be an amazing feeling.
Well, if you let me to elaborate, it really went back to one of the beginning days when at the time I really just started wildlife photography, and one day, so I love to after work, after school, I love to go to Barnes and Nobles to just grab all the magazines to on photography to read every day, grabbing my coffee, cheesecake and stuff. And one day I remember I grabbed one magazine and all these photos blew me away. And it was a magazine by Nature's Best. And ever since then, I kept I just read this magazine every single day, looking at the photo, because I didn't know that those photos were possible. I couldn't believe that people could capture pictures that were so beautiful and also so emotionally involving. And I still remember vividly that the issue was the issue where Federico Veronesi won the grand prize. And in that issue, there were a lot of photographers that blew me away. And I remember very clearly Federico's photos and also Paul McKinsey's photos. But anyway, so after I took the photos of the bear, I remember my good friend Carl was telling me that, hey, Tin Man, you should really submit it to Nature's Best. And I thought it would be so crazy because just 2 years ago, I was really looking up on those photos that I thought I would never reach to that level. But with my friend's recommendation, I give it a try. And so the whole experience was like that. You guys, some of you have submitted to photo contests, right? So, first of all, you submitted the JPEG, right? The 2000 pixels JPEG. And then they will tell you that, hey, we are so happy we're so excited to tell you that your photo has gotten to the second round, right? And then they ask you to submit the TIFF file and the RAW file and all. And then the dream begins, right? For all the photographers, you have all this fantasy, like, what if I won and what if that? And then you kept waiting and waiting and you didn't hear anything, right? So I remember this one day I got a phone call from Steve Freely, the founder of Nature's Best. And he spoke to me and he said, hey, is this Tin Man Lee? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, the result is not out yet, but your photo may be considered as a category winner. So, in Nature's Best, they have the highly honored awards. And then based on the highly honored, they pick the best one to win the category, right? For example, the wildlife category, the birds category, the like the black and white, like those kind of things, right? They don't have black and white, I guess, but like animal antics and landscapes and those categories. And then so out of all these category winners, they will pick the grand prize, right? So Steve was saying that, hey, your photo may be considered as the category winner, but this is not final. So don't tell anybody, because if you are not chosen, then it will be kind of an embarrassment, right? I think that is the way they say that. But I think that means that you already won the category. But I just didn't expect that when one day the email came and then I won the grand prize from the list, because I never was told before that too. So it was a really, really great experience, like looking back on how I admire the photos in there. And a lot of photographers actually they never thought about submitting the photos, and me too, because when I was taking photos, right, it is all just my own enjoyment. I was just so happy to see the wild animals out there, and getting a photo would be already a bonus, right? But little did I know that when I actually went to the award ceremony in the Smithsonian, and I saw like hundreds and hundreds of people going in, and then they were in the exhibit, and you see the excitement of the kids looking into in the gallery, looking at those photos, and then their parents trying to explain to them what they were. And it was just a huge satisfaction that your photo would make a difference in their life, right? Who knows, maybe they fall in love with these animals and they may do something in the future, right? They may be the biggest supporters of wildlife, or they may got into wildlife photography. So that really started this spark in me to try to improve my photos, and then more photo awards, publications, and all this stuff. So that's really the long answer to your short question. So I hope that helps. Yeah.
Oh no, that's a great answer, because my next question was, when did you start your passion for wildlife photography, and how old were you? Because I know you had a passion for wildlife at a young age, and I think. Was it influenced by your grandmother?
Yeah. So it was a very interesting thing you asked that, because I kept on thinking about that too, because sometimes we forgot, right? Why are we taking photos? And excuse me. So so there was like a big gap between my love of wildlife to my wildlife photography. So, so back in the days, my parents and I would go visit my grandmother in our native village in China, because they were very hardworking, right? Didn't have a lot of vacations. So we could only visit her maybe once or twice a year, sometimes just once a year. And that would be my most treasured times because my native village is just really beautiful with a lot of nature in it and all. And during those times when we had to go by the boat, there's a ship actually. So I would always spend like a day in the ship, and then I would paint all these animals. And like I think this is something that we may talk about too. Sometimes when you think about wildlife, I would also think about the good times when the moment I'll see my grandmother again. So, this kind of things happens. And so I fall in love with this wildlife. And I remember when my parents used to bring me to their office to work. And as I'm the only child, I would just wait at the outside of the office all the time with the TV there. And since I'm the only kid of the whole office place, so I got to control the TV. So I always play the Discovery Channel. So I have recorded all these TV programs of animals, and I would just repeat watching them. And I guess which one was my favorite. So there was one episode that always brought me so much excitement, which was about the peregrine falcon. And they would talk about how peregrine falcon has this speed of dive bombing and all these things. And I would be so amazed. And I would say, oh, how I dreamed to see a peregrine falcon one day in my life. And you didn't realize that one of the best places to see peregrine falcon is actually in Southern California. So that is just amazing. So anyway, this love of wildlife kind of spanned over my whole childhood. I was just I just watched those TVs and paint. I draw animals all the time. But as you know, growing up from an Asian family, right, the parents always wanted you to become a wildlife photographer, right? No, so they always wanted me to be either a doctor or an engineer. So, and then I came to the US from Hong Kong and started, I studied engineering and all, and I went to work, and I completely forgot about my love of wildlife until after the stress at work. And I started to go to the bookstore, and I was just surprised by myself that I would just go straight to the wildlife section or the photography section. I would just keep reading those books again and again. It's always about wildlife and birds. And then one day I started to pick up my camera, and then I couldn't stop. So that's really the whole story. So it was just amazing how for 20 years I completely forgot about this love and this passion, but it just came back to me, and I felt the most joy afterwards.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So how long have you been a serious wildlife photographer? Has it been about 10 years?
It was about 10 years. I think I got my 100 to 400 Canon lens for many years, for 20 years. but I was always going to the local pier, some bird sanctuaries, and taking pictures, maybe some seagulls flying against the sky, and was happy. But I don't know why, but it was just this 1 year that I started to think I gotta really go to Yellowstone. I really want to go to Florida to see these amazing birds and all. And I think that was another reason, is because that was a few years after I worked, and I was able to afford those trips. Right? Before, it was in the school, grad students, right? I mean, eating instant ramens, right? I could never afford those. I think that was really the time when I said, oh my God, wait, hold on a second. I did have some savings now that I can really get my flight ticket and maybe join one of those tours, maybe book a day or two on those little boats in Florida to see those, or go to Yellowstone. So I think that is really just a natural tendency. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Because I've known you for about 10 years now, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've done some trips to Yellowstone together, and Nome, Alaska. And I think Marlon's on here in the meeting too. Marlon was with us in Nome, and so is Rick.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that I have one thing to add to the fellow photographers here too is I still remember you mentioned about me reaching out to you about the bobcat, right? So when I first started, what I did was I just Googled bobcat California, bobcat Los Angeles, right? And for some reason your photo came up and it was in Flickr, I guess, and I just love bobcats so much. They're just amazing looking, right? So elusive, so beautiful. So I always wanted to see one. And indeed, I don't know if anybody knew this story. I think I was driving with my girlfriend one day, many years ago, and we were driving in some kind of like those wildlife refuge or something, and I think as we were pulling in the parking lot, my girlfriend said, "Oh, there's a dog. Be careful." and I said, "Oh, okay." So I drove slower, and then I opened the window and said, "Oh, this is like kind of like a medium-sized dog." And I look at it as a bobcat, and so I took my camera out and I took a bunch of photos, right? And then the bobcat was really close to me, and at the time I said, "Oh my God, this is so beautiful." But then I just took a few photos and I stopped. And later when I came back home, I realized how rare it was. I didn't know that it was so rare. And so it just, like this, like love at first sight, but then you didn't treasure it. It's almost like the life story, right? We didn't treasure it when it first happened. I think it happened to you too before, right? You told me that you saw wolves and all this in Yellowstone, and then you didn't take photos, right? So that happened. And so I tried to search all over the place. And then I saw your photo. And I still remember when I talked to my good friend in my company, in my old company. So I worked in the IT company before. And I said, I really want to email this Donald. And because, look at these photos, right? I really want to go up there and check it out. And my friend said, no, don't do that. Like, why would he tell you? Like, this is a waste of time, right? Nobody cares about your photography and stuff, and then like that. But then because of my desire was just so strong, so I wrote an email to you, and just because of that, right? It just sparked all these years of good friendship and photography opportunities, and we got to discuss so much about photography all these years. So I just want to share this because I want to tell people that there are always some nice people out there. Like if you want to learn something, want to find some animals and all, just be kind. They may refuse you because sometimes some of the owl like nest or those may be sensitive, but generally, I think this is really how people connect, right? And I think that is just a really nice memory how I got to know you.
Oh yeah, I think Jamie Heimbach. That's how Jamie and I met, was through Flickr also. She reached out too.
Yeah.
So I always tell my son, I say, especially when you're young, is if you're interested in something and there's somebody who excels at what you're interested in, send them an email. The worst thing they can do is ignore you or say no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You could always have this beautiful friendship that comes out of it afterwards too. So, always make that attempt to reach out to people. It's very well worth it.
Yeah, I think the key is to be genuine. Like, you don't want to say, hey, like, tell me where this like long-eared owl nest is, something like that. And then people will be very nervous, but try to get to know that person. I think it is like, hey, like I look at a lot of your photos, and then I actually look at your bio too, and I look at your at your website about your passion, and then your like how you work hard. And then I remember you were saying that like this is my plan, this is my goal, this is my dream and stuff. And I said, oh, this is a really special guy. Like he was working really hard and stuff. And so I get to know you from the internet. And that's when I decided to reach out. And I think this is really important that we shouldn't rush it. We should really get to know the photographer first, get to be friends with them. And then once you started that, people started to trust you, right? They know you are not the people who stress the animals and all. And I think that is really how we can get good photos, right? We share, but we promise to not harm the animals. And otherwise, it's just way too difficult. Think about the first 10 years, right? When I was just going into the beach, the piers, and then we're just trying to get a pelican standing on the pier. And those are the photos that you get. But when you have this strong network of friends, that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I think that the personal relationships is what makes, nature and wildlife photography that much better. Is
Yeah.
that connection that you have with people. And then when you get together and you decide, hey, let's go on a trip together, and that camaraderie and the shared experience is what it's all about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to get back to my questions here.
Okay.
Okay, because you were talking about, how you had your passion for photography, then you went to college, and then after college, you took up photography again. And you mentioned you were an engineering major, but it wasn't just engineering, was it? It was kind of like in imaging.
Yeah. So, yeah.
How does that influence your photography and the way you take photos and the way you design your courses and stuff?
Oh, it's well, I actually had never told anybody about this history thing. What really happened. So when I came to the U.S. to do my undergrad, I picked electrical engineering because that's what most of the Hong Kong guys did is engineering, and then we may plan to do like medicine afterwards, all this, but undergrad, you can't really choose that, right? So I picked that, and I didn't like it. It was more in like circuit design and stuff like that. I mean, it was a really sophisticated, really high technology, but my heart was really in animals and all, but I didn't know that by the time. So anyway, fast forward, after I got my undergrad, I think I was I had some friends who were playing with cameras and stuff, and at the time I had no idea, but I just got curious, right? And then when I read more of those magazines and stuff, I started to get my first camera, and I was totally hooked. And I still remember I got my film camera first and then later I got a digital camera, and I think that was around year 2000 2001. And when I took a photo of a flower, and then I try some of the stuff people talk about in the forums. Oh, you got to do unsharp masking. You got to do this and that. And when I do the unsharp masking, everything just becomes so much cleaner. And I said, oh my God, this is amazing. And I got to learn more about photography and stuff. And so I talked to a lot of professors and then everything. And then I said oh, you should do a Master of Fine Arts to really improve your photography, but that requires a portfolio, and I never had a portfolio, right? So I talked to some of my old professors, and I said, I really want to learn more about stuff like unsharp masking and all this stuff. And that's how actually I did my PhD in imaging, because I thought of unsharp masking was really something that I really wanted to learn. So actually my graduate thesis was in image denoising. You didn't know that there is something like that, but it was more in the medical field, because medical field always can get a lot of funding for graduate students. So we were trying to remove the noise in medical imaging. And how to find the brain connection. There is something called diffusion tensor MRI. I don't know if any of you are familiar with those. There's one kind of imaging, and my task was how to remove those noise and artifacts and stuff like that, and find the real connection of the brain, the left and the right and all these connections. So that's what I did. And then I went, after I graduated, I worked in a company in this biomedical field for 10 years, actually. So, and then so my background was actually in this, and it's all actually because of my first digital camera, but I rarely tell anybody. I never told my professors why I did that. And so after 10 years of working in an IT job, so for the first 10 years after I got serious in photography, I only had 3 weeks of vacation, and I was sitting in a cubicle. And so maybe soon we'll talk about how I squeezed the time to do that. But so that lasted for 10 years. And last year I decided that I needed a break. It's been 10 years working in a cubicle, right? So I took a break, and then I used my savings to start to travel. So I went to India, Africa, Alaska, Chile, and a lot of places, and I used up all my money. so that's why I plan to kind of give myself a year or two just to see how things are going, and if not, I may go back to the cubicle job if I'm not doing any, like I couldn't make a living, but I'll see how it goes. So that's how this whole thing is really revolving around photography. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that answer because that's, that's something about you that not a lot of people know.
Yeah.
Of course, I knew that, so I wanted to ask you about that, kind of let people kind of get an understanding about your background in imaging and how you got to where you were.
Yeah.
I want to kind of move into a question that's kind of more about when you approach a photo or a situation. So let's say like you and I are in Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
We know where there's going to be a bobcat at the edge of the Madison River.
Oh yeah, that's a good time.
Yeah, that's a great time. So you're riding in the snow coach. It's pure black. You see Barrett Hedges ski by. And what are you thinking? I mean, how do you process how you approach that bobcat in the field? Do you where's the direction of the light? What are your hopes? Your exposure. What's your thought process for capturing the images?
Well, that is actually a great question because I realized my situation at the time, right? So I really only had a week of vacation that year. I used up the other ones. So I only had 1 week and I have full-time job. So it is impossible to play the numbers game, which is like spending 3 months in Yellowstone, waiting, driving out every single day and hope for this once a lifetime opportunities, right? That is impossible. And in order to think about that, compare with the people who are local in the park and hope that you get a photo that is more impactful is impossible for those once a lifetime opportunities. But the good thing is, I think photography is not only about getting this once a lifetime behavior. It is a lot about our imagination and creativity. How do we utilize different focal length, different shutter speed, how to use the lights, the composition, the angles, and to really feature some of the special colors and fur and feathers of the animals. And overall, we are putting a 3D world into a 2-dimensional space, right? So it is much more than just capturing the moment. It is a lot about some crazy imagination and how you can realize it in the world. So I actually have more, not more, but like the same kind of respect for people who can turn a very ordinary subject. Well, I don't like the term subject, but like, but anyway, so ordinary animal, like not ordinary, but like more easy to see animals, like maybe a deer, an elk, or maybe bison in Yellowstone, right? How do you turn this into something that moves people? Like, first of all, you have to love the photo first, right? But how do you move people? So we remember when we were in Yellowstone, right? You know that you probably thought we were crazy. By the way, we Don and I were roommates. We shared a room together, and so once after we knew of this bobcat sighting, the night before that, Don was hearing me like saying some crazy stuff, like, oh, like what if the bobcat jumps? How do we do that? Hey, what if the bobcat do this thing, do that thing? And I had all these kind of scenarios thinking about that. And you remember that, right?
Oh, yeah. Kind of pre-visualizing the whole thing beforehand.
Yeah. So people always think that I'm crazy because I would say, oh, like what if like these 2 bobcats were playing in front of a rainbow, right? But this is just some kind of like you just have fun with your imagination, and that is one thing that we have better opportunities than people who are local to the place, right? Just imagine, like if a photographer is in Yellowstone all year round, right? They kind of see it as more like a job, like, okay, today I'm going to get some groceries, but tomorrow morning I'm going to drive out and then wait, right? But for us, we have all the time to daydream. I mean, not at the workplace, right? But when we go to the bookstore, when we read all these magazines and read those beautiful oil paintings, we can get inspiration, right? Like why Da Vinci painted this painting like this, right? Why Rembrandt painted this like that? And I love to ask myself, like, how come some of the masterpiece would last for hundreds of years, but most of them we forget, right? So there must be some ingredients in there that triggers people's imagination and their memory. So so this became like my obsession. I started to kind of pick out all these ingredients and try to see if nature can present myself with those kind of light and those kind of background. And once you become more aware of like, okay, maybe like for example, if you see a red fox, right? You think that, okay, the red fox is kind of orange, reddish, right? So you immediately think about the complementary color, which is kind of greenish. So if you can get a fox in this kind of dreamy green, it will instantly create this visual impact, just like how Van Gogh was using the blue and gold a lot in those photos. So I try to find those opportunities actually. So instead of waiting for the moment, right, passively, just chasing the animals and just keep shooting thousands of photos. Of course, I still will do that. But more important is if I did see something happening earlier, I mean, not earlier, but you know what I mean, right? So when we were watching the bobcat moving along the bank, I would just keep looking to where the bobcat is going to walk towards, right? If I see that the bobcat is going to walk towards a place where the light is not going to reach in the background, I know that there's going to be some shadow in there. And then you know that for the light ratio difference, right? When the light is shining on the bobcat, and then the background is really the shadowy. It very easily you can adjust in Lightroom that the background will be pure black, and that will make the bobcat really pops, right? So this is just something that I kept on imagining and thinking along the whole time. Really, I was just creating different images in my mind, and it was so much fun because like your mind is free, right? So you just like combining all these hundreds of years of people oil painting, or maybe some people who had some amazing photos you want to learn how they make it and all, and then you create scenarios. And I remember one time, it was not in the bobcat, but I kind of digress. So we were in Alaska last year, and we were following this male bear for a long time, and this male bear was out of luck. He was never able to pursue this female bear. Every time he came closer, this female bear would just run away. And so for 4.5 days, was no luck. And we thought that, okay, we would not get a photo of them mating at all, right? So on the last evening, as you remember, this male was on one spot, right? And we were photographing this male. We call him the snuggle tooth because he had his tooth hanging out because of he lost some fights or something. So maybe that's why he didn't have a lot of confidence to pursue the lady. So this lady was about 2 miles away at least, and we were watching her. And then we thought, okay, there's no hope. It's 2 miles away. There's absolutely no photography, right? But suddenly this female looked up, with the nose go up. And I was yelling at my whole group and said like, she's going to come. They're going to mate. Let's go into the backlit spot and then get the rim light and everything like that. And people would say like, you're crazy, man. It's never going to happen. But just as I said that, this female just kept walking closer and closer by. And we were already positioning ourselves perfectly with a nice background with the rim light. And then they started to like touch their face, like do this light kissing and stuff. And before the female even reached, we saw this male was shocked by the female. He was like, "Oh my God, what happened? Like me?" Something like that. And you capture all this all this behavior, and he was just like, and then you saw this male bear started to shake around like, do I look cooler now? Before the female came, and you capture all this special moment just because. You kept on imagining like, oh, this may happen. Let's just get ready, right? Instead of like, you just don't do that, and then you miss the whole thing, right? The tension and all this thing. And just like the bobcat, right? We've talked about how she may jump, and so we knew that. And once we knew that, we know like what kind of shutter speed we should set and what kind of background we can get and all these things, right? So I think that is one of the key things for people who don't have like a Nat Geo budget or like 3 months, 6 months with a permit in the place. This is something that we can really harness, which is our imagination, our reading of all these magazines and photos and stuff, and learn about how to trigger the emotion, right? There are things that we know, all these oil painters, like master oil painters have already mastered all these years. And we can just borrow a few of them, test it in the field. And if it doesn't work, then we try something else, right? And I think that is a lot of fun. And what else were you asking?
Well, one of the things that you touched on there that really, it made a difference to me when I was doing my wildlife photography is exactly the conversation we had before we went out to shoot the bobcat. As you kind of said, well, what do we want to capture? I'm like, well, what do you mean? We just kind of go out there and we capture it in the moment as it happens. And you were like, no, we have to think about what images we want to capture. Do we want to capture the bobcat jumping? Do we want to capture it walking across a log? Do we want to capture it hunting? And I'm like, oh, and you were telling me how you were kind of pre-visualizing the situations so that we would recognize when they happened in the field. We'd be ready for it and we'd be set. And that was kind of life-changing to me because I never really approached wildlife photography with the idea that I could predict what images I wanted to capture. We were like, look for something with a dark background, see if he's going in that way. There's your image. I'm like, wow, we can actually create these images that we want to capture and create emotion and everything just by thinking about it beforehand and being prepared for it. So that to me was really, something that helped me with my photography. And you also told me to get all the BBC books, look at all the winning photos so that when you do get out in the field, you'll recognize all the parts and pieces that make a winning photo. Like the black background or the golden background, the nice book and all those things, so that to me was life-changing when you kind of started telling me about these things. I'm like, oh, now it makes sense.
That is that. Well, actually, I was just watching something in YouTube yesterday, and I got a new idea. So what we have been talking about is just like. So, for example, I was watching this video. They were talking about there was some key in piano. Just when you press these like 3 keys together, people will instantly feel happiness. And then if you just change one of the keys and then you press that key, people instantly feel sadness in it. And it is difficult to explain. Like why are we all hardwired in our DNA that when we hear this note, then we feel sad. And when we hear the other note, we feel happiness and joy. And I think for photography, there is also this kind of language. When people see certain lines, certain like for example, I kept talking to you about the triangle, right? Like if you see something in the wilderness that created kind of a hinting that is a triangle, people will instantly react to it. But first of all, people think that nature is supposed to be chaotic. But when they see this kind of geometric shape, it's like, oh, there's order in the chaos. And they instantly have a emotional reaction to it. Just like this music note, right? So another fun thing about nature is and wildlife is because of all this their behavior and all this kept changing. And once we find out these secrets, right? What I call the secrets, a secret note, right? What to evoke in the emotion, and I think a lot of the time, when I wanted to create my photos. A lot of the time I was like, oh my God, like work is so stressful. Or maybe I just had a breakup. I shouldn't say too much about those. Like some things happen in our life and we wanted to go to nature, right? Maybe it's happy, maybe it's sadness, but we usually wanted to express ourselves, right? So for me, a lot of the time, if you see a lot of my photos, a lot of the time I was trying to take photos to kind of reflect on my feeling of how I miss my grandmother. So a lot of them were like mother's love to the babies, and I try different composition, different color, different lighting, different lines and stuff. It's all about this thing. And if I were able to connect the different the lighting with the animal and all, maybe I can utilize what these oil painters were doing, right? When Van Gogh or Picasso, they have the blue period and stuff like that, and then all this photo have certain color, right? The colder color, right? So that's what we have been talking about too, like the cold versus warm color and all these things, right? And at first I thought I was crazy because when I read all these books, right, they were always talking about how to nail the sharp shot, right? Just nail it, right? What is the sharpest lens, right? What is the best camera? Like what is the 100 megapixel camera? What is the highest ISO camera? But not a lot of people were talking about this thing called emotion. But at the end of the day, when people look at your photos, you want to evoke their emotion, right? And another thing was a lot of people would say that, well, I just want to do photography for self expression and my own happiness. I don't care. Like if nobody likes my photo, it doesn't really matter. But I think now it is in a different time of history where our animals need every ounce of our help to protect them and save them. So if you had the world's top camera and lenses, right? Some of them, like, I mean, all these camera and lenses that just came out, they were really good quality. But if you know how to use that, plus you know how to evoke those emotions, and when people see that, when they get a reaction to it, who knows, maybe there will be a difference. And I kept on telling some of my previous clients and all to look at, like after they take learn the techniques and take photos, I told them, don't just look at how many likes you get. Look at what the comments people are giving in your photos. If they just say, hey, it's nice, oh, it's great, and stuff like that, those are good. But look at those long paragraphs. Like I still remember some of my clients say that, oh, like when I see your photo of a deer or a pelican or some other animals, it reminded me of like 20 years ago when I first had my first encounter, and blah, blah, they talk like nonstop. And then they said like, I can't wait to go out to take photos because of you. And you know, like this is how you create an impact in your photo, right? So I think in photography, there are different stages, right? So I think one stage is you should learn how to evoke this kind of emotion to the maximum extent. And then once you do that, then you can try to do your own style and stuff like that after you master all this stuff. But you should at least learn to know how to make people happy and cry, you know, like all these things. And it has been a fun journey to me. And when I first began, I mean, I was just happy to get a sharp shot. But after a few years, when I get a lot of sharp photos of birds in flight with perfect background and all these things, I realized that I was just living in my own bubble. It's like the photo was really sharp and all, but when I show it to my family and friends, I can see that the response is, oh, well, you have good skill, right? You have amazing skill. Like you're pretty good at Photoshop as well. But then when you learn about these things, people say different things. Right? They said like I have received emails over the years where people would tell me like how they cry when they look at the photos and all. And I was happy, but I was not surprised because I mean, this is just something that I borrowed from all these masters in the history, like some of the top photographers, some of the top like graphic designers and oil painters. And when you can create that, it becomes super fun, right? It's all about imagination. So yeah, I don't know if I completely digress from your questions again, but yeah.
Well, you kind of covered, I kind of will talk about, you know, you have a lot of programs or a few programs that you do like dynamic tension stacking and your emotion or maximum emotional impact course and things. And, you know, you teach these skills and you teach people how to see and how to process their images so that they can create, you know, maximum emotional impact so that when they submit their photos to contests and stuff, you know, there's a difference. When people see their images, there's a difference, you know. And we were also kind of talking about in yesterday's coaching call about what was it? It was the biology of seeing.
Yes.
You know, and so all of these things come together to create these. And one of the reasons we're interviewing you is because you're an internationally award-winning photographer, and I think a lot of people want to reach that level, but they don't know how. You know, and what they, you know, it's not just about going out and being in the location, hoping you capture the image and, you know, if you're out there enough times, you get it. It's about, you know, and that was kind of the question I also asked is when you go out in the field, you pre-visualize, how do you see the light? How do you decide your settings? How do you choose what you're doing and stuff? And I think in your courses, you address all these things. And I'm not trying to do an infomercial, but I do want to say that if you have the opportunity to take any of Tin Man's courses, do it. They're worth their weight in gold. And then, of course, the coaching calls where you get to almost basically have a one-on-one with Tin Man. It's, and have him critique your photos. It's unbelievable. But, and I'm kind of doing the infomercial here, but which is not what I want to do. But I like the way that your thought process goes from, it's not just taking images, it's capturing emotional situations and sharing them with people to create change.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's beautiful about the photography that you do.
If I could add one comment, what I see this as is the first time I saw Tin Man's work, I thought, oh, well, that's nice. I'll just go out in the backyard and capture whatever I capture. But what you do is what I think the consummate teacher does, and that is you demystify it so people can take those steps to find more success in what they're doing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bob and Don, talking about it. Because I mean, this whole teaching thing was an accident. I don't know if you guys know that. So for 10 years, I had my full-time job as working in the IT industry, right? So, but deep in my mind, I always wanted to become a novelist, like a writer. So at the time, not really novelist, but at least a writer. So one year, my parents and I went to Falkland Islands for 2 weeks. And it was so much fun, so much drama. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm just going to write this ebook about my journey in Falkland Islands with all this crazy stuff happening. And so I spent months writing this book. Like I think there was like 30,000 words or something. And I put it into an ebook. And I decided to sell it, right? But the people were telling me that, oh, no, you should not just sell an ebook. You should always add a bonus to it so that people will buy. So I said, like, what kind of bonus can I get? And I said, like maybe just throw in maybe your digital workflow there. So that's what I did. So I created my ebook that I sold for like $5.99. And then I say that, okay, if you buy my ebook, you get my digital workflow, which is $99. And then when I announced it, that's the craziest thing. I finally sold 5 copies of my ebook. But then I sold like hundreds of copies of my digital workflow. And I said, that is crazy, because the digital workflow really only took me like an hour to just like demo on what I did. And that's when I got a lot of questions from people being interested in my workflow. And at the time, I haven't even finished developing this whole thing about how to create gradients using local adjustment to really lead the eyes, right, to see the thing. Right? So a lot of photographers, when they do editing, what they think about is like, how do I do the ultimate sharpening? How do I adjust the color most accurately? How do I remove the noise? But I just forgot one day, I think I was just driving in Yellowstone, and I suddenly thought about that and said, hold on a second. Like, there must be something that is more fun than just doing all this sharpening and denoising and stuff like blindly every time you have a photo of a raw file, right? And then that's when I realized that after you capture the photo in the wilderness, right, you get a photo like that. In the editing aspect, you also have to bring the audience into a visual journey based on the color, the sharpness, the contrast, and cold and hot color and everything like that. And so when I try that, kind of combining all this sharpening and stuff, but with a change of objection, trying to lead the viewer's eyes, right? For example, you all know that when we look at a photo, most of the people their eyes will wander around the photo, but eventually they will always focus on the lower left side of the photo. So what did they do? If there is nothing in the lower left that had kind of like a color gradient or the brightness gradient or a sharpness gradient, meaning that if there's nothing that is sharper in the other part of the thing place relative to the lower left, people's eyes would not change. And if the change is too much, their eyes would also not change. But if there is a smooth transition of that, you will very gently lead the eyes of the viewers into those parts. And after I tried for many years, I realized these techniques are really, really good. And when I told my friends, and then they also started to see the change, like just very minor change. It was just quite surprising, right? These days I can just like maybe just enhance just a little bit of certain things, like maybe 1 or 2 minutes, the photo will just completely changed. And I think that was really what we are talking about. Like you play in the piano, right? Just one note, just a tiny bit of change, it will change from happiness to sadness and all these things. And if we learn about those, I think that's how we can absolutely increase the chance that people would at least look at your photo instead of like, in Instagram scrolling to the next photo, and actually pay attention to what you are trying to convey. What is the message you are trying to say on that? So yeah.
With Tin Man's programs, not trying to infomotion or again, but he talks, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. He talks about how he uses the different tools in Photoshop to enhance the image, but these are tools that you can use for contests. You're not adding or detracting anything from the original image. Mm-hmm. It's how you can, through your post-processing, lead the person's eyes to where you want them to be in your photo and create that emotional impact, much like the masters of old did, like with Mona Lisa and stuff. If you look at those pictures and see where they specifically put areas that were light and sharper and stuff like that. It's really a brilliant way of thinking about doing photography and your post-processing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people at first may think that I don't want to do any editing to my photos, right? I want to be staying true to the scene. But actually, because I was from a digital imaging background actually. So when we take a photo, it is a raw file that is 14-bit or something. And if you're new, you may not know that for any of the monitor or even for printer, they cannot print the whole 14-bit of data there. For us to see visually, it has to be compressed to 8-bit, meaning that if the photo has a big dynamic range, you have to actually throw away a lot of the stuff. So what we are looking at in our computer, after, like a lot of you may have that experience in the beginning, right? You went out to take a beautiful photo, and then you download your photo into your computer, and then it looks very bland. It's like, what happened? Where's the color? It's all gone. And then what about the sharpness? I remember it's really sharp. How come it's not there? Well, it's because the digital camera is not optimized to really capture what you were looking at in the scene. It's actually capturing all the digital data, ones and zeros, with the 14-bit data. So basically, what they are showing you in the monitor is an estimate of your computer about what you actually wanted to show in your camera. So maybe sometimes your photo may be a little bit brighter, maybe a little bit darker, but the computer is kind of estimating, like maybe this is what you want, and then they show you this JPEG preview. So in the editing process, you are actually realizing what you saw in the scene at the moment, but you also try to use your imagination to really help to use basically the minimal editing to bring out what you're trying to present in there. And all these data were actually in the raw file. It's not like, okay, the sky is blue, I want to make it red. Like there are some people who do that. Like I want to change the background to another cloudy, like dramatic background. Like I would puke, I would vomit on those things because you have to stay true to those. So it's not about changing this thing and adding those things. It's really, it is a raw file that is not optimized for printing and for viewing, and you are bringing it out. Like for example, sometimes when we get the photos of like a golden background, it is the computer is just not optimized to bring out this gold, right? So we talk a lot about how to use the calibration, the primary colors instead of the hue and saturation slider to bring out those colors. And if we don't know about that, it is just we put ourselves into a disadvantage because we pay all this money for these cameras and all, right? And what I learned is actually not invented by me. I was just very lucky. I knew a few good friends who have been to all different kinds of workshops and editing class, and they share notes with me. And then we discuss a long time to see like which one is optimal, which one is definitely allowed, and which one is good and bad. And I myself had taken so many have taken so many classes, and it's all filtered out. And the key really is just to present it in the most natural way. Like, because I talk to people like many times, like, if you know how to do the sharpening in the best way, people would just say that, oh, your photo is so sharp, right? So this is actually maybe in contrast to most people think is you actually don't want to create a photo that is the sharpest. You actually want to create a photo that people feel that their eyes is being drawn to the sharpest area. And so that's exactly what Da Vinci was talking about in his book. So I remember one of my clients were telling me, oh my God, I just read Da Vinci's, like the book by forgot the writer, the one who wrote Steve Jobs' book. Isaacson, right? Sorry, so that's the last name. So if I pronounce it correctly. So we were talking all about that. And that's why Da Vinci was trying to show like how people's emotion is connected to all this kind of sharpness and stuff like that. And the idea is fascinating when we learn about that. And God, we don't have 5 hours to talk about that, right?
Well, I had a question. If you'd be willing to share some of your images that you have there, because I think you prepared some images, and just talk about, what you did to create the emotional impact of those images. I think that was also one of the questions that somebody had in the questions.
Okay.
So
I don't know if I have a good example.
I have a couple on my computer, but if you have, I think you've got better ones than yours.
Okay, so maybe I'll show like one of these. Is this the one that? Yeah. So oh, I forgot to share. So can I share the screen?
Yeah, you should be able to share the screen.
And I should have the before and after, but maybe that's for another interview, right?
Yeah.
So for example, like this bobcat photo right here, right? So if you look into this photo, your eyes is being drawn to the eyes, but if I told you that actually, so what have I been doing onto the editing of this photo, right? So I didn't really blur about this thing. This is all from the lens and stuff like that. But I actually created a little bit of brightening on this part and a little bit of darkening on this part. So it's a little bit different from the vignetting that people were doing, because I actually brightened this part, but it's in a very subtle way, and also a lot of like feathering and gradient, so that it's very natural. So what happens is that people subconsciously is being drawn. The eyes is always looking from the darker area to the brighter area, without even them knowing when the change is so subtle. But when you included that into the photo, their eyes were just naturally drawn from like the lower left to this, from the upper left to this, and this side to this, and this side to this. And also when the eyes is the sharpest against everything else, so you don't actually need to sharpen this area or this area. And most people actually taught you that, oh, you should sharpen the whole animal. But the thing is, nowadays I think it is extremely important when we do posting in Instagram and Facebook, people's attention span is so short, right? So you have to really instantly, you have to grab their attention, which is to guide their eyes from the lower left into the hook of the image without them thinking about where should I look. And if you couldn't do that, it is very difficult for you to even start to tell your story on that. So that's why, so for example, this, I don't know if this is a good example, Don. Do you have any other examples? So this is something that is just very subtle, very gentle, that people wouldn't even know that you have darkened the surroundings, and then the sharpness is still pretty, it doesn't look over sharpened, right? And then you can see that the sharpness kind of like goes out like from here to here and stuff like that. So that is one of the example of the idea. But in the, I mean, we can talk for a long time about the details, but I just kind of want to utilize this interview time to really kind of explain to to the viewers that we always wanted to move people with our photos, right? And we have to understand how our brain works, right? Like what we see and how our brain reacts has certain kind of ingredients, certain kinds of secrets. Like for example, I remember, like I kept on. Don, are you here?
Yeah, I think I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, because it seems like frozen in your photo. But anyways, so what I say is I think Robert McKee in his book on storytelling talks a lot about that. It's like when somebody was like a guy is proposing to a girl, right? It can be next to a dumpster with the rats coming out, with the smell coming out, but it can also be proposing at the top of the mountain with this backlit like golden glow and then like leaves like falling and stuff like that, right? And you know that in those situations, there's a more likely chance that the girl will say yes. I mean, some people say that if it's true love, it doesn't matter, but but still, right? You see the effort, right? But the key is you will know that for certain animals, it will be better if you use backlit for them. It's not for all the animals. Like for example, for animals that are really colorful, you actually want frontlit to really show their beautiful colors and all. So it's not like a one method to end it all. Like we should always do backlit. We should always do this golden background and all. It all depends on what story you want to tell. And I think the key is to keep imagining and think about these stories and know how to execute it in the field, right? Like otherwise you would never know. You would just say that, okay, I have to wait for the background to turn gold, right? But in the reality, it is not like that. It's just that you have to understand that when the background is with the last light of the sunset, for example, and when the animal is in the shadow, then you can get a golden background, much better than if the background is golden, but the animal also have light on them, right? So this is the stuff that is kind of combining what you want to create with the method in the field. And once you combine the two, then you can basically paint what is in your mind much easier. And when you see people laugh and cry, and you can make a difference and maybe eventually help save some animals, I mean, this would be some of the best feeling that you can have. I mean, I had some of those happy feeling, and it is so much better than anything else. So yeah.
Sorry, you lost me there for a minute. I think my internet connection dropped. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, good. I think you'd asked if that was a good example of the bobcat. And I think that's a really good example because the changes that you made in post-processing are so subtle, you know. And I mean, the moment that picture hit, my eyes were drawn to the eyes of the bobcat, and I fell in love with that picture, you know, just because it, you know, and I know what you've done to that picture to make me fall in love with it. And still, you know, subliminally, I'm like, that's amazing. I didn't care if the ears were sharp. I didn't care if the eyes were sharp. There were, you know, I was drawn to the lighter areas of the face. It was perfect, you know.
Yeah.
If you could share another image, do you have anything else that you could share that you could talk about also? And then we'll hit some more of the questions, because I think we only have a few questions in the Q&A section.
Let me see. I'm just trying to search for that. Okay, this one. So it's actually a very simple photo. But okay, share this one.
Oh,
okay, yeah, this one, right? So that is so it was a very disappointing trip to Yellowstone that year. So we basically missed everything by a day. Like people say, oh, you know, there was a pack of wolves like right next to the carcass in front of a river, and you guys missed that. Oh, there's this carcass that, you know, like basically everything. Like you miss. So and that trip we didn't see anything really, but one time we saw this bison right there, and I have hold on one second. So it was so let me show you this photo first. So that was really the original photo, that I mean the original scene that we saw in the day. So this is very common, right? In Yellowstone, you see some bisons and then there's some tall grass, and then in the background is all distracting, right? So most people would say, okay, I'll just take a few photos, right? And then they took a few photos and then they go on, right? But for me, I mean, we couldn't find any wolves that year. And I look at that and I started to see that, okay, if I turn this into a black and white, what is going to happen is if I align the bison with the green background here, and people might know for black and white photography is that it is very easy to turn a dark green part. Once you turn it into black and white, basically you just change a little bit of the red filter, will become pure black. So all I need is just to wait for the separation between these two bison. And then when the bison is not in front of this tall grass, and you just look at me, and what is going to happen is I started to see the behavior. So this is the thing that Don and I were talking about is when you see a behavior, you started to daydream, right? So that was a winter, but it's a kind of a warm winter. So there is still vegetation there. So most of the time, if you go to Yellowstone, right, it will be pure white, right? But this time, there is still some greens there, right? So instead of you seeing it as a distraction, right, how do we utilize it? And then I realized that when the bison is breathing this steam, the white steam there, when it's against the white, it's not going to show, right? But when it's against this green, it's going to show up, right? So all I need is just for the bison. So what I did was if I go a little bit to the left and wait for this bison to walk away, then the whole background will be this dark green, right? And then when I wait for the moment when there's no such distractions and when the bison was looking at me, there may be something that can happen, right? So that's my imagination, but I didn't know it would happen. If it didn't happen, it doesn't matter, right? But if it happened, then maybe I can get a photo that I'm happy about. So that's what happened when the bison look up and then look at me and then they just breathe. And I was wishing that he would breathe out when there is no tall grass in front of him. So he did. And after I got this photo, I was so happy, and because I mean this is a very common species, right? And but then I was able to create something that I like, and the reason I like it is not accidental. As I talked to Don and Bob, what we're looking at here is when we see the steam coming out from the nose, what is going to happen is you have to think about humans, right? We all have been to the cold places, right? And if we have been to California for too long, once we go to these cold places, right? When we breathe out, we see this steam coming out. It's, oh my God, it's so much fun, right? And then you started to breathe out and breathe out. And what does it mean? It means that the place is cold, right? So instantly you connect with people without telling people that it is cold, that it is really a cold place, right? So by capturing this moment when the bison is breathing out, you kind of can feel this cold Yellowstone winter, but this eyes, when you have the eye contact, right? You show this like very strong character, right? Like how did they survive this cold winter? Like almost kind of give people a subtext of like courage and like being strong and how to not be afraid and stuff like that. So it I guess it is more than just what you see as an animal. And not to say anything about photo sales and all, but I just want to kind of share this story is that after I got back home, I received an email from someone I didn't know, and he decided to purchase this print for over $1,000. And the money is not really nothing that I was thinking about in the beginning, but for a stranger to spend so much money for a print when they have never even, he didn't even know me before. He was asking around and people pointed it to him, and then he emailed me. So for someone who didn't even know you, but they have that, you trigger the emotion to actually buy a print to hang in their house or something, that I think alone tells me that there is really something about this connection, about emotion that is more important than just nailing a sharp photo. I mean, nailing the sharp photo is like the prerequisite. That is definite. Like you can't just do a kind of like a mildly out of focus photo on that, because I'm kind of obsessed with super sharp photos too. But that is what we have been talking about, right? So I mean, this kind of thing is like just like I was just like eating some snacks in my car, and then I saw that, and I just like slowly like shoot it from the window, and so the whole thing was not glamorous. I was like frustrated, no wolves, right? This is like spending all the money, but turned out that this become one of my favorite bison photos of all time, right? And so I hope that this story kind of convey that. And so when you look at this photo, right, you in terms of editing, I mean, this is really not much editing to it, but you can see that the eyes is really sharp. It draws the eyes. And
go up again, Ken.
What's that?
Can you bring the photo up again so we can see it?
Oh, okay. I forgot that I wasn't sharing it again. So yeah. So you know, like look at this part. It's not even sharp, right? And then it's just basically the eyes is sharp, and then this is medium sharp, kind of like like that. And you know, when you look at it, right, your eyes is being drawn to the eyes, and then the smoke, and then you see the contrast of that, right? So basically, what I wanted to convey is like this fur is contrasting the sharp horn, and then the kind of like the blurry, the dreamy steam is contrasting with like this sharp nose and the eyes, and you know they also, because of the black and white, people can focus on the interesting shapes and the textures more than the color ones, right? So that's what I wanted to convey. So like very minimal editing, like not like the ultimate sharpening thing, but I also know how to make it ultra sharpen, but it's only in the eyes. But I also create a gradient so that it doesn't look like it is only sharp in the eye, but it is a gradient, like gradual drop off of the sharpness, so that people will feel that it is so natural. And it is very similar to what Da Vinci was talking about, how humans see things and how we convey things, right? Because when you see the eyes that is being sharp, then the whole photo is sharp anyways, and it doesn't really need anything. And actually, if you make this part sharp, it's actually not helping the photo. So instead of sharpening the whole photo, you shouldn't do it. And I think that is even a stronger statement than previously. Like, oh, you're not skipping it. It's like intentionally not doing that to make this thing happen. Yeah. So.
Well, that was a great example. I love that. That was what I was looking for. That was perfect.
Yeah.
We are at 6:15, and I know I'd like to get to some of the questions that people posted in the chat. Would that be all right?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then after we're done with that, we can continue to talk.
yeah, for 10 hours, right? That's what we usually do. Yeah.
Okay, Bob, you have some of the questions?
I do. One of the first ones submitted was by Papa Alpha, and he was asking if you're going to do a calendar this year.
Oh God, that's a very good question. So I did a calendar last year, and it was a lot of fun. But I thought about that. But last year, what I didn't expect was I got probably a few hundred orders, and the mailing was so tough. So unless I can find a place where they can do all these logistics, I may not do it. And it's already October, so I don't know. Probably not. It's just too much work. But the good thing is I may be working on a book though, so I'll let you guys know how that is. Yeah. But thanks a lot for asking for that. Yeah.
Well, another question, Tin Man, from Susan was that if you were able to ask one question of a photographer who's passed away, who would that be, and what would you ask?
That's a very good question. I've seen that in some other interviews, right? You know, right, when entrepreneurs, like, who you want to meet. But if I'm gonna meet a photographer who I admired, it would be Michio Hoshino. I don't know if any of you have heard of him. He's a Japanese photographer, and so what happened to him was he of course he's my idol, and so he lived in Japan, but after he saw some photos in Alaska, he moved to Alaska and spent his whole life in Alaska. And if you read his book, like Alaska by Michio Hoshino, Hoshino, so you see that his photo might not be like the most ultimate best photos in terms of technology and all, because he was back in the 70s and 80s, and he was using a manual focus 500 millimeters in the film days to photograph these polar bears, right? So it's very difficult. But what I love about his photo is that when you look at his photo deeper, you feel this strong love of his photos. And when I talked to some of the people about that, I read more about his stories, right? Oh, by the way, unfortunately, he was killed by a bear in Kamchatka when he was only in his early 40s. So it was very unfortunate. And the reason he was killed was because I think the reason was that there's too many people living in the hotel, and he was so kind that he said, "Oh, there are too many people. I can just live outside. I can just live in the tent." But turned out that there were some locals who were baiting a bear. So the bear was old and he was baited. So when he was hungry, and he was like habituated to take food from humans, right? So that's how the bear got into the tent and killed Michio. So it was very unfortunate. But the thing that I learned from him was people told me that whenever you see a group of photographers taking photos back in the 70s or 80s, right, he was always the one who was standing the furthest from the animals. And when he sees that any stress he was putting into the animal, he would just walk away. He would just enjoy those moments. And one time I met this good friend of mine, Mark Kelly in Alaska. He told me that, back in the days, I also did photography in the 70s. And he said he was in Juneau. And he wanted to take photos of Northern Lights. And later he said that somebody told him that there's a photographer who would build a tent next to a glacier and wait for a month or 2 months for just one photo. And he said, I better give up. I can't compete with this kind of photographers. And that was Michio Hoshino. So I always admire people who actually do what they live for. Like he loved photography, he loved wildlife, and he just quit his job and just went to Alaska, and then he just camped there, he hiked there every day, and then he just go for his photo, and it's just so full of love, and his essays were excellent. So and it was really healing too. He talked about he enjoys how those moments when he had the encounter of the animals, and he was more focused on the animal than anything else. And I think I would definitely want to talk to him and ask him what is his inspiration, and if he can give me some tips. And what is most interesting was one of the photos that I love at all time was a photo by Tom Mangelson. It's a photo of a polar bear with an Arctic fox in the grand landscape of in the Arctic. It was just beautiful because on the left-hand side, it was wind sweeping, like blue hours. And on the right-hand side, because it's a panoramic, on the right-hand side, it was like the last light was golden and all. And the polar bear was looking into the light, and the Arctic fox was following the polar bear with the mouth open. So it's almost like they are good friends, right? They rely on each other on looking for food and stuff like that. And this photo was just amazing. And it was, I think it won the BBC Photographer of the Year back in the 80s or 90s. It was just a stunning photo. But one year I ran into Tom Mangelson, the photographer in Yellowstone, and we started to talk about Michio Hoshino. And I think Michio Hoshino was actually with him in some of those trips looking for polar bears. And it was just like these legends, right? Just amazed by their hard work and really showing us what was possible, and then we started to work on the shoulder of them. So that is my answer.
That's inspirational. And we'll share that link with you in the next day or two.
Yeah, right.
I have a question from Anne, and you probably get this every time. She said, for those of us without a ton of money, what do you think the minimum equipment requirements are so you cannot be frustrated in getting images?
Well, that is an excellent question. I totally understand that. I don't have a lot of budgets as well. So the key thing here is not to be blinded by the commercials and a lot of the websites. Like for example, if you go to DP Review or DP Review, and some of those websites. So they would tell you this lens won the gold award or silver award and those things, and then you just purchase those zoom lens and stuff like that. But the thing was, a lot of those reviews, they were not tested for real life. They were not tested for low light action photography when the animals is coming in and out of the lights. And for example, like for bobcats and those, they blend in so well, right? So a lot of the cameras, they were not designed to capture the autofocus when the animals they spend millions of years like blending in and all. You need to have certain cameras to do that. But the good news is that you don't need the highest end camera and lenses to do that. You just need to know which camera and which lens is perfect for your usage, right? For example, Don, right? Don is using a Canon 1DX, right? It was the top camera back in the days, but right now 1DX Mark II, 1DX Mark III is coming out, and the R5 is coming out. So 1DX becomes a lot cheaper. And so comparing with one of the newest consumer camera that came out, compared with a 1DX or even a 1D Mark IV, which was what I used to capture the bear pouncing photo in 2012, that one was a really capable camera. And for example, a Canon 405.6 lens is excellent. I mean, it doesn't have image stabilization, but if you know how to use it, the optics is top notch and all. And I think it was a $500 used, or maybe $900 new or something. And you can get those lens and camera combo, and it will be so much better than some of the zoom lens, the 50 to 600 zoom lens with 20 megapixel camera. So the key is to know which camera and lenses. And also, one thing that I want to share with you guys is I remember back in the days, I got a 500 f4 lens, super expensive back in the days. I mean, I think people were crazy, absolutely crazy to spend like $5,000 for a lens, right? Because I could buy a car, right? But so anyway, so I bought this version 1 Canon 500 f4 lens, and I spent all my savings for that. It's $5,000. I used it for 5 years, and then I decided to sell it because the second generation came out or something. So when I sell it, guess how much I sold? I sold it for $5,500. So it was 500 more than what I paid for. The reason was, I think the Japanese yen was rising, and also this kind of lens, they preserve value so much better than some of the zoom lens. So basically, if you have the capital, this lens, actually you're not really losing money. If you want to sell it, you can usually sell it at like 80 or at least 90% or at least 80% of the cost. But if you couldn't do that, you can get some of the used lens, but you need to know which camera and lens you want. You're more than welcome to reach out to me if you want some advice on that. But basically, a prime lens is better than some of the zoom lenses, and also you have to pay attention to like the low noise capability of the camera, and if it is a full frame camera, because sometimes full frame is better than a crop sensor. So it's not about getting the newest lenses based on those commercials or the camera reviews. You really have to ask someone who knew to know the difference, who had actually learned the lessons when you try all these things. So yeah. So one thing is to get some of those used lens that is very fast. The second thing is you can still rent something. So you can rent a few lenses in lens rental or borrowlenses.com for a weekend, and maybe like $100, $200, and you really try it out. And then you know the difference in the autofocus, and it will blow your mind. It will blow your mind if you really like see the difference when you know which camera is suitable for your use. So yeah, so I hope that helps.
It does. And your example of using Donald as someone who's using the Canon 1DX and amazing things that he does. But, a lot of that has come from him knowing you and working with you, but also his determination to do the best he can in every situation. Yeah, he's a role model for a lot of us.
Yeah, like you guys should check out Donald's pictures of the grips with the golden background and all. He took it right at sunrise or even before sunrise. And if you know how to utilize your camera and push it to the limits, you can do some crazy stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Melissa Ann mentions, is not so much a question, but a comment, is that you would think after all the classes and coaching calls that she's joined with you that she wouldn't learn anything new, but each time she watches something with you, she gets more and more out of it. So just a little bit of testimony for the good things you do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yep.
Kathleen said, what emotional qualities do you value most in the imagery to use for conversation related purposes like protecting vulnerable wildlife? Do you partner with other organizations?
Okay, so let me see. So I currently I don't partner with any organizations, but the thing was, I was very honored to win the Nature's Best photography a few times. So if they were to use my photos for exhibition and all, that can spread the message, then I'm totally for it. And for example, recently I worked with a biologist who was the director of an endangered species program. And so I gave him a photo to use, which was to fight the main problem of the kid foxes. And so those are the stuff that came out, but I don't really like work with someone. But if it is really for the conservation, then I will be more than willing to help. And to get back to your questions about what kind of emotion you have to do, right? So I actually learned it from Robert McKee in his famous book on storytelling. Sometimes I read those random books is teaching people how to do screenwriting. But I think actually for photography, we are actually writing our own screenplay because nature is our stage. And how do you see the opportunities in the stage? And how do you like master the lights and everything and wait for this special moment? Is really just like you're the Shakespeare of your world, right? So Robert McKee said that the key thing for really to change people's mindset is to create something that has the value reversal. So what it means is, for example, what I did a lot is most of the time people would think that bears or wolves, they were like vicious, right? They are like dangerous, right? For bears, right? Every time when you look into the news, it's like, oh, like a father and a daughter got attacked by bears, right? They were killed or deeply injured and stuff like that. It's very negative, right? People were so afraid of the species, right? So it is very difficult to really convey the conservation. However, Robert McKee said that if your photo is able to create something that is completely reverse the value. For example, if you show like a mother bear playing with the cub, or like I still remember one time I was in Alaska, and this mother bear was right there, and the cub saw that the mother has some hair, some fur on the mouth, and the cub tried to catch it. And I saw that the mother knew that the cub was trying to catch it. She immediately raised her head, like so that the cub couldn't reach it. And then the cub kept jumping up, and then the mother would just say, go left and right on the face. You know, it was just like heart melting when you see that. Like these animals were actually enjoying their time, enjoying the bonding of that. And if you were able to capture that picture, of course, with like really special angle and light, so that, you know, everything comes together, people would be surprised. They say, oh my God, like I had never thought about that these animals have like this kind of sentience, right? That's what I, sorry about my English, right? Have feelings. And when they see that, they started to tell other people on that. And once more and more people know that, oh, these animals they were just trying to protect the young. When they got surprised, the natural instinct is to fight back. And that's why this attack happens, right? And if not, most of the time they were pretty calm and they were very loving and all. So this kind of bonding photos is one of the examples that I think it is good. And then the second thing is more like mysterious, so that, like, you know, sometimes when you have like some more foreground blur and dark background, creating more mysterious feeling, people want to learn more about these animals too. So I mean, I can keep talking, but these two are some of the examples that I can tell you about.
No, that's great. Adam asked, what's the craziest encounter you had with a wildlife photo shoot?
Oh, the craziest. God, that's a very good example. Let me think about it. I mean, most of the stuff are pretty crazy when I saw an animal. I don't know if Don is here. Is he locked out or something?
Donald is having just a little trouble with the
technical.
So you might just be stuck with me.
Oh God. The craziest. Well, there were quite a lot. I mean, the bear experience was definitely good. And you know, that this is one thing that I really love about wildlife photography is during those craziest moments, right, when suddenly the animals approach you and stuff like that, it is really a test of your mindset. Like if you really have to tell yourself that it's gonna be okay. And for some reason, if you are very strong in your stance, you are not aggressive, but you are not scared. Animals can feel it. And first of all, they may come close to check you out, which is really awesome. I mean, of course, not attack you, but second thing is they respect you and they allow you to be present because they knew that you are not a harm to them. And then they do not see you as a food source too. So I mean, when the bear was like pouncing close to us and all, it was very, very crazy. And another thing was, like I remember I kept on looking for these bobcat kittens for a long, long time, like in the craziest heat and then all hiking for miles and all. And so finally I couldn't do it anymore. And I was just sitting down and just taking a break, right? And then suddenly this bobcat kitten just came out and just like, she just walked out and then just like sit down next to me, like not next to me, like 6-7 feet next to me. And at the time, so guess what happened? This was when this was the time when I actually put my camera away. So I didn't have my camera, but you just like look at them, and then when you were calm and all, the bobcat kitten was just looking at you, and you know how elusive they were, right? But once you have this kind of connection, they felt that you were not a threat, and time and again, the animals would be very comfortable and they would do their own behavior, and that's the time when you can capture the best photos. So really, really an important key is to just practice to be so calm. You don't rush to the animals, right? And then you don't like run and stuff like that, just to be really, really calm. And I think, yeah, the craziest one was probably that. And then I think one time I got lost in some tundra in Alaska, and I didn't have my bear spray, which was stupid of me, but I mean, that's another thing. Yeah. So yeah.
Couple more questions. One, and this relates to gear. How do you take care of carrying all that gear around, like say a 200 to 500 lens and everything else when you're out in the field? Because I know you had some injuries for a while. So yeah. What are you doing to compensate for that now?
Oh, so that is also a very good question, because I mean this gear is super heavy, right? And I had my like 2 herniated discs in my lower back, but it was not because of photography. I was just stupid to do some weightlifting and Brazilian jiu-jitsu to try to defend myself in the wilderness. But not to the animals, but for humans, because you know sometimes when you hike in the backcountry, some sketchy, like some crazy people will approach you, right? So anyways, so what I do is I usually minimize my load. So, or if you have a 200 to 500, I always carry it on my shoulder, or with a backpack. I forgot the name of my backpack, Mindshift backpack or something. You know, so you carry them, and most of the time, if I can avoid it, I would actually not bring the tripod, because first of all, the tripod add a lot of weight. I remember when I was photographing the pumas in Chile, like we had to hike so many mountains and all, and I had my tripod on, and after a few like hike, I started to wanted to throw away that thing. But you know, like so try to minimize it, maybe minimize it to maybe just 2 lenses and 2 camera body, and use a lot of those harnesses, right? So I usually just have a big cushion on my shoulder, and then I just carry the lens like that. And whenever I have time, so this is also one thing to add, is anytime when I'm not shooting, I put my camera on the ground. So people will say, oh my God, can you treat the camera like that, right? But this is the time when you have to really rest up. So I put everything on the ground as much as possible so that no weight is on me. And when the action happens, then you bring it up, and then you can avoid it. And so for bigger lenses, right? 600 f4 with a 1.4 teleconverter is super heavy, right? So how do you even carry it? It's impossible, right? And putting on a tripod, then you carry the tripod with a 600, and you become slower. And for wildlife photography, everything is speed. You have to get into the position quicker than everybody else, basically. So I don't usually do the tripod, but for the 600 f4, how do I carry it is I just have to practice to aim quicker. So I don't spend a lot of the time to hold the camera and then started to shake, right? I just put the camera on the ground, and when things happen, I just swing it up and then take a few photos and put it down. I swing it up and put the photos, put the thing down. It's just like the bucket of water, right? If you bring it up and put it down quickly, it doesn't really weigh on you. But if you keep holding it and then wait for the moment, then it is difficult. So it's almost always a trade-off. You get the agility, you can walk around faster with a tripod, but you also get into the position much faster for a lot of the shots. And time and again, it's always these few seconds where you are ahead of everybody, that the animals do something really amazing. And when the people get there, the animals will usually get away. So that is one little secret that you have to be like lightning fast to move, but of course not to scare the animals off, but like make a larger route, like when the animals is there, you don't go straight, right? You do a route, but do it quicker than the other people. So.
Great answers to all these questions. I have one final question we'll ask, and then Donald, are you back?
I think I'm back.
Oh, you're back.
Oh, hey.
Okay. I don't think I've.
Long time to be gone.
Okay. Well, the final question, Tin Man, then is, and this comes from Isaac. Isaac is a young and new photographer, but he's doing pretty well. He said, "What advice do you have for aspiring photographers?" Well, maybe we could all fit in that situation, but anything in particular that comes to mind?
Oh, the recommendation for that. Oh God, that's a very tough question, actually. So for aspiring photographers, so I guess what I can say is, God, I don't know if this is really I have so many recommendations. Can I talk for 2 hours?
Very broad.
Yeah, but let me think if I have to narrow it down to one thing is, one of the most difficult things is we don't have a lot of time, right? If you are young or something, you have school and everything like that, right? So we are already at a disadvantage compared to a lot of people who have who are full-time in photography. So I think one thing is to really think about focus on going into one species and build your portfolio on that, and just keep going back again and again, and then think of all kinds of photos that have been taken and what photos have not been taken, and then keep on using your craziest imagination to think about what kind of light, what kind of angle you can try on, what kind of composition you can try on. And most of all, a lot of the photographers, they tend to, when they are new especially, they tend to spend, they just got too excited, and then they get too fast into the animal, and the animal couldn't get adapted to them. So what happens is that the animal will just started to walk away, and then they look back, and then you just get one of those photos. So you just spend a lot of the time to go slow, and just, I think more about thinking about what photos you want to get, and spend a lot of the time to create this thing in your mind first, and also to learn so I think of a better way. So Don was talking to me about that too earlier. So that was one of the book that I can recommend. So right, Don. So it might be a very weird recommendation for people doing birds and wildlife photography, but I think my mission here is to really tell people that I think. Who was that? David Duchovny was saying that too in his book, right? The world doesn't need another beautiful photos. They don't need another pretty photos. People only want you to move them. So in order to move people, you have to have a completely different mindset. It is no longer about chasing the most rare animals like a wolverine jumping in the sky. It is more about thinking about what are the components that you can include or exclude in your photo to move people. And I think, for example, one of the photographers that I admire, Andy Parkinson's, for example. I don't know if you guys follow him. So in his Instagram, like he got photos that won awards and got great recognitions with species like a coot. Right. So he got a grand prize in some of the biggest bird photography contests with a coot. And like, how many of you would take a photo of a coot when you're in the pond when there's a mandarin duck and a wood duck swimming, right? So see, that's the thing. Like he was able to know what are the ingredients of a photo that move people, and with the light, with the angle, with like the composition and the behavior and stuff like that. He really knows the behavior of the coot, right? And he got that. And then a hare and a lot of the common species. So the key thing I think is if you can use your photography techniques to turn something that is common to extraordinary, that would be great. And then when you see something extraordinary, you can make it even better, right? So that is the thing. So one thing I can recommend is something like this book, Vision and Art, The Biology of Seeing. And then another book is The Annotated Mona Lisa. Those two books summarized all the techniques and mindsets of the human visual cortex, how our brain works, and what are the past master oil painters, what are they painting, what emotion they want to convey. And if you can read these two books again and again, like 100 times like me, and then think about how you can apply those into your animal species that you love, then you can create something something different. So very different opinion, right? Not just. Well, I think I read a website. I mean, some classes that some people told me to do, and say, what is the one thing that you can teach us to do to improve, right? And I remember that the instructor was saying that go out more, be one with nature. So I mean, this is a good thing, but how, right? That's the thing that we really want to learn how, and how to be one with nature. I think it is something like the mindset that I talk about: be neutral, not to rush, because but it's very difficult too nowadays, because any place you go where there are hundreds of photographers or 50 of photographers together, and if you don't go, they will run to the animals anyways. And how can we balance that? It is a very tough questions, and so I kept on thinking about that too. And yeah, it is tough. It is actually very, very competitive nowadays. It would be good if you can find some places that have fewer photographers. Maybe the animals are more difficult to find, but if you were there, then you are more free to create something like that. Like if you are in Yellowstone and there are 100 photographers out there, and if you go into the backlit position, then you'll will not be the best friend with those people on the other side where you are photo bombing them, right? So those are the tough things. So I hope that these two books will be a very good resources to read it, and then think about look back into your photos and see like if you can find something similar, and then try to improve on those. That then you can create your own unique style after that.
Yeah. I wanted to add something before I get disconnected again, because I was gone for a while. That was a little scary. Something that I put some of Kinman's contact information down on the chat section, because coming up in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing a 2-day boot camp type thing course that he's going to be doing. And definitely, if you're interested in learning from him, this is a great opportunity. It's going to be reasonably priced for 2 days of intensive classes with Tin Man, and he's going to, tell you how to do the work.
Oh yeah, that's true. Thanks for reminding me, Don. So Don and I are gonna do these 2 days events on a weekend, and it's gonna be like an all-out like photo critique and like just like what some of you asked, like what are the lenses and cameras we should avoid, and what we should get, and if we already got this camera and lenses, what we can do about it, right? Because sometimes we are stuck, right? And then it's like, okay, now Canon has this nice R5, right? Do I switch from Nikon? No, right? We are getting stuck with what we have, and how do we maximize that? And you might be surprised on what you can do in those things. I have seen people when they know the techniques, they can do really, really great photos that you can print big at ISO like 10,000 or even higher, but you have to know exactly what you do. If you make a tiny bit of error, then the photo is in like from a photo that you can print big to some photos that is like a non-photo. It's just like this tiny bit of stuff. So Don and I probably would talk 2 days on those things. That would be fun. And yeah, we'll let you know more information, because I mean, I just recovered from a fever, and this past month I had 2 fevers, but thankfully I'm like COVID negative, but God, I've been lazy on working on that. But the idea is really for the 2 days boot camp is to tell people that they can create a lot of great photos, even in their backyard, right? I mean, recently we see a lot of our friends and clients creating stunning photos from just like their backyard and very close by them. And this is what we have, right? We have our imagination. We don't have a lot of time. We don't have all the budgets. And how do we utilize that, right? Like for me, for 10 years, I was in my cubicle with 3 weeks of vacation. And also all these photos that you have seen in my website and all were taken in those 3 weeks of vacation. But how do I do that? It's all from like the imagination, a good network of friends, and some of the techniques that we discussed in this thing. So I mean, it is not for everyone too. It's only for those who are really want to just learn more about that and stuff like that too. So.
And this is going to be a live event, right, Kenan?
Yes.
Yeah, so somebody asked if it was an online class. It's going to be a live event. And when it comes up, I will post it to the meetup group as an opportunity to go with a link for you to register through Tin Man's website.
Yeah.
So I want it to be presented to you guys so that everybody has that opportunity to go and participate, because it's really, I think it's going to be a great opportunity.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add is Don and I have been doing this kind of events, usually not in this kind of settings, right? With like really low cost. This time it is, we're just giving a try. But the last time we did one of those events, we went how many hours?
Oh man, I almost thought it was like 11 or 12 hours. I want to say 17, but I think realistically it was like 11 hours.
Yeah, 11 hours. But don't be scared though, because the thing was, this past 2 or 3 years, Don and I have been doing so many of those, and we got thousands of questions. So we basically have seen most of the questions, and we kind of summarized them, and we knew exactly what are the most common questions, what are the most challenging questions, and so. Yeah. So right now, when you see that, when I got these questions, right, I basically have had heard about some of those questions before most of the time. So it will be a lot of fun, and I think it will be very interactive too. So yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a good course.
Yeah.
Bob, were there any more questions coming?
No, that's pretty much everything that was on there. Some of them were overlapping, so I just kind of combined them.
Okay,
But everyone was extremely thankful, Tin Man, and obviously Donald. Nice work.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for organizing this. I think more people need to hear this. It's really, I thought about that a lot too, about like, oh, I just want to take photos for myself. But I think really now is the time when the animals really need us. And we just shouldn't wait. And even if we are like amateur, we don't have full-time job. I mean, I have seen so many people who were able to create stunning photos with just some of the most easily seen species. And I was just talking to Susan, one of our clients recently. I asked her to post her photos for so many times, but she always thought that like she might not be good enough, or she doesn't feel that, oh, this is, I just do it for my own enjoyment. But when she posted that photo, it just went like viral on the internet, and I mean, not like viral sense, but it was super popular and was shared by so many Audubon societies and all the stuff. And people reach out to her about how her photos impacted them, and what they make them to, the photo made them want to go out to take photos and really remember a lot of the great times and all. And I think like these days we really need people like that to share our joy, our happiness, and our art to more people, and ultimately to save more animals. I mean, I can't believe that the photo that I enjoyed the most, which were some of the kid fox photos that Don and I went out to take, and some of these photos were being able to help conservation, right? Helping the mange problems. And Don had a photo book, right? That is also helping conservation too. And so, I mean, we are little people, but we are really slowly doing stuff to help the animals, right? Even if it is not like a big impact, but if we can, I mean, these animals provided so much joy for us. I mean, if we can just do a little bit of stuff for them, which is to create stunning photos for them, then we are doing them justice. And this is like a way for me to pay my respect to them. So, yeah.
That's cool. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you too much longer, Tim, because I know you've sleep schedule's a little off and you're just recovering from being sick.
Yeah.
But I really want to thank you for coming on and letting us do this interview with you. And
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
everybody, Tin Man's contact information is in the chat. If you have a chance, you can see it there.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you want to add as we depart, Tin?
So thank you so much. Yeah, Don and Bob for creating this community here. Like for some of you guys, so all of you are already members, right? There may be some new members, right? So Don and Bob lead not just online. So I think I saw Pat asking the question that is the boot camp, where we call it 2 days boot camp online. Yes, it is online, but Don and Bob lead some like real life workshops, right? To see animals and wildlife, and they teach, and also so congratulations for joining this community, and so just to let people know that they can both join online or actually go out to take photos with you guys.
Oh, thank you very much for
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, because if you just joined the group, like I said, it's free to be a member of the group, and we post. Right now, we do a lot of things that are online because of COVID, but as soon as that's over, we do a lot of things in the field, and that's primarily what we do is field workshops and stuff, free get-togethers, astrophotography, landscape photography, all kinds of different wildlife photography, macro, mushrooms, you name it. If it's
Really?
hard to do it.
What kind of mushroom?
Not that kind of mushroom.
Okay.
Special mushrooms.
Okay. Oh, so I'm not joining then.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a great community of photographers, and that's what our goal is to not only have things out in the field that are field trips, but also to bring in speakers like Tin Man. Last one was Tim Gray, to help share the knowledge. So we will have things that are both in the field as well as online. That's kind of our goal for the future.
And we'll have a new, well, maybe a meetup. Shortly, you'll see us post something within the next week or so.
Well, I thought you were going to say we're going to have a new host because I wasn't.
No, I was ready. I could cover.
Okay. All right.
So,
well, thank you everybody for coming. Ken, anything else?
Well, it's so much fun, and I think more questions are coming on your way. So,
Are people asking more questions?
yeah.
Lots of thanks to everyone.
Yeah, thank you
Thanks.
everybody.
Yeah. So I think if you guys have more questions about the meetups and stuff, you can reach out to Don and Bob, and maybe also me. I can help out too. So
Yeah, definitely. You're a part of
Yeah.
the group now, Tin Man. So
Mhm.
you'll be in the field with us.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. We got to have a reunion. Yeah, all three of us. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So awesome. So so thank you so much, guys. I hope that it is helpful for the attendees. And if they have any questions, and if they reach out to you, let me know, and I can help answer them.
We'll share. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Okay. All right.
Thank you, everybody. And everybody have a good night. I'm going to
Okay.
stop the recording now.
Okay. See you guys.
Bob reminded me.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.